And welcome to Buckets After Bedtime, the IU basketball pod for busy parents. I'm your host, Dylan, and once the house is quiet and the kids are finally asleep, it's time to talk some Indiana Hoosiers basketball. No 2-hour shows of nonsensical rumblings and overreaction, just smart, focused discussion surrounding the Indiana Hoosiers, all in about 30 minutes or less. So as you're cleaning the playroom for the 100th time today, grab those headphones and let's talk some IU hoops. On today's episode, we're taking a look at IU under Darian DeVries year one. As we're recording this episode, the regular season is officially over. IU coming off a disappointing road loss to Ohio State. And this episode will talk about kind of an overview of the regular season. Obviously, the Big Ten tournament's still to come, and IU's bubble hopes of making the tournament seem to be popped after that loss to Ohio State, although it seems now, after reading into things and listening to some people this morning on Sunday, the day after the Ohio State game, that the bubble in the whole did terrible over the weekend, and that IU's hopes may not be completely dashed, and it may not take a miracle run to the Big Ten championship and possibly having to win it to get a ticket to the dance. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this first segment, I just kind of wanted to talk about where IU kind of ended up after Darian DeVries' first year. So overall, they finished 18-13, 9-11 in the Big Ten, which is a 10th place finish. So not exactly ideal, not exactly in the top half of the conference. Some quick hitting statistics as IU finished up the regular season. This comes from Bart Torvik. IU ended the year ranked 27th in adjusted offensive efficiency, and their adjusted defensive efficiency was 52. Now I looked a little deeper, and since January 1st, so really the heart of Big Ten play, offensively they're actually about the same, a little bit better, ranking 26. Defensively, though, this is where we see the struggles come in. Their adjusted defensive efficiency post January 1 ranks 96. So there, right there, lies in the story of this IU basketball team and why they struggled so mightily down the stretch and finished with the record that they did in the Big Ten. Defensively, just not good enough. The biggest strengths from a statistical standpoint, their 2-point percentage, oddly enough, ranks 7th overall in the nation. Their free throw percentage, 12th. So they're making the free throws. And their overall shooting efficiency ranks 17th. For those who are curious what their three-point percentage ranked overall, 148th. So not exactly what we would think based off how the roster was constructed coming into the year, which could also explain why they struggle so much. Their biggest weakness is just rebounding in general. Offensive rebounding, 340th. Defensive rebounding, 193rd. Steals, per game, they ranked 347th. And fouls per game, they ranked 257. Now, I'm not sure how many teams there are in the NCAA. I think it's in the 360s, maybe. But anytime you're seeing it, you're ranking in the 300s of anything, that's really, really bad. And that shows. And, I don't think I need to tell you what their rankings were per se. If you watched any of their games, that their rebounding was awful. They weren't generating any turnovers, and they couldn't play defense without fouling. So, nothing that is surprising, given if you watched many of their games, but also not surprising though if you look at the way this roster was constructed. And so that brings me into the kind of the next talking point, is this overall roster construction and how it just was not good enough. The biggest thing for this IU team they just lack size and athleticism to compete at a high major level. Where everybody pretty much came from a mid-major level from the transfer portal, with the exception of Sam Alexis, who was coming off the bench at Florida. Everybody else, though, coming from a mid-major level, and the hope was that those guys would be able to do what they did well at the mid-major level, sorry, tongue twister, and apply it to high major basketball. And for the most part, that just wasn't the case, a few exceptions. But you could really see how just the lack of the physical attributes just couldn't make up for, they just couldn't make it up through other means, through skill, through efficiency, etc. It's just too big of a mountain to climb, especially as with a roster completely constructed for the most part of players coming from that mid-major level. Because as you kind of look through the roster, who on this roster would get meaningful minutes on top level Big Ten teams, or even Big Ten, or teams on national level? And honestly, as I look through the roster, I think Lamar Wilkerson would. It's just such a. I mean, out of all the players, he's a season MVP for sure. Offensively, he was everything as advertised and improved with his getting to the rim as the season went on top of the 3-point shooting. So he would be able to get meaningful minutes on a top Big Ten team. I think Tucker DeVries will. I know people are might push back on that, and I know a lot of people aren't happy about Tucker DeVries. I do think he did underperform a little, but he still was, if you look at numbers and ratings, one of IU's most important, if not their most important player, just based off everything he could do. So I think he would definitely be able to crack a lineup and play meaningful minutes. It might just be those two, though. You could say Sam Alexis would be a good quality backup big man in this league. You could even say that maybe even Taylor Conaway could be a good backup guard in this league. But other than that, I don't think anybody else on this team is seeing meaningful minutes at a top level Big Ten school, and that lies the problem. Just not enough talent to win consistently. And it's nothing against the guys, nothing against the team. It's just the reality of the situation. I mean, we can see directly how this team struggled from the defensive side of things, where like I said earlier, they're ranked at 97th or 96th in adjusted defense efficiency since January 1. Just not good enough defensively, and it makes sense. They don't have the guards who have size or athleticism to kind of be the head of the snake and disrupt another team's guards and offensive sets. Connor Enright plays hard. He's a pest. He's a dog, but he just lacks the physical attributes to consistently stop high powered guards. Which is an issue, because that's kind of the first line of defense when playing team defense. And then behind that, their front court, no rim protection. Nobody on this team was a block, should consistently block shots or alter shots. And so when you're not having, guards be able to generate high ball pressure at the top, and you don't have anybody in the back end of the defense to provide resistance, that's where you get the defensive numbers that they're at. On top of that, you can't rebound on an efficient level, and you're not generating steals. That's just creating more opportunities for the opposition to score points. And if you're given them more opportunities, a higher percent of them cashing in on those opportunities. So all in all, I think that kind of leads to why they struggle on the defensive end. Offensively, not terrible this year. They weren't, I'm going to push back on people who say they were live by the three, die by the three. It's not that simple. Yes, was their offense predicated on 3-point shooting? Absolutely. The coach's philosophy coming into the year was we're not going to be able to athletically compete with the size and the strength of the Big Ten, but if we can get a bunch of shooters out and kind of shoot our way past those deficiencies, that's what's give us the best chance to win. Unfortunately, they just weren't able to get enough quality looks behind the three-point line. How many times do we see Lamar Wilkerson have to hit a contested three with the shot clock winding down, or Tucker DeVries taking a three 5 feet behind the 3-point line because it was open and he's not, and that's the only opportunity he had to actually get an open look at a 3-point shot. And I think that comes down to the offense's inability to consistently get to the rim and finish, which helps provide spacing, which then helps create better looking opportunities from behind the 3-point line. So again, I don't think it's as simple as, oh, well, they just didn't shoot the ball well enough from three, so that's why they didn't do as well this season. No, I think it's a direct correlation to the offense just not having the personnel to run what Darian DeVries wants to run on a consistent basis. So the hope is you get that personnel in there and it'll look a lot better. And that kind of, is the main hope. And so where does this team go from here? I believe the concepts are there to be successful. If you really want to deep dive into what Darian DeVries is running, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, I recommend the X's and Joe's podcast. They do a deep dive. I think the episode was a couple weeks ago, about what exactly Darian DeVries is running and what this team and program is trying to build on the offensive end. The main takeaway I got was it's definitely a modern style of basketball. The offense isn't more based off like specific sets that they run, but more about reading a defense and reacting to what that defense is giving you, along with game planning to what your team's strengths are and trying to game play away from what your weaknesses are. And it's an offense that emphasizes 3-point shooting. Listen, it's 2026. It's what modern basketball is. The amount of times I hear, living up in Illinois, I do find myself surrounded by some Illini fans, and the amount of times I hear some Illini fans complaining about their big men shooting threes, and they should just live down in the post. They don't need to be chucking so many threes. Which, I don't know if they realize that Illinois has one of the best offenses rated in the country, but that's just what modern basketball is now. It's a lot, the whole math equation. Threes worth more than twos. If we are efficient from three, we'll have a better chance of scoring more points. So that's what the offense is kind of built around, of emphasis of 3-point shooting, which is what most successful college offenses run. I referenced Illinois, one of the top-rated offenses in the nation this year. That's what they emphasize. The team up north, Purdue, defensively they're trash, but offensively very good, and they also emphasize getting good quality looks from 3-point and hitting a high percentage of threes. Michigan, Duke, all Florida, even Florida with their front court depth, they've recently turned it on. Why? Because they're starting to hit shots from three. Alabama, another example of a team who's really good offensively, not so much defensively, but really good offensively. Very efficient from 3-point line. So that's what successful offenses in college and modern basketball are doing. And that sounds like what DeVries is trying to get. And it's not just about, chucking a bunch of threes, but getting to the rim for easy twos, layups, dunks, and then getting good looks from three. So you're getting good shot quality, good shot efficiency, and limiting those essentially trying to eliminate the mid-range game or those contested twos. Defensively, again, this is where this team really fell apart, especially towards the end of the year. They are trying to limit threes and force more contested twos. Again, it's back to that math equation. Twos are worth less than threes. So if you want to call it pack line, I think it is kind of under that kind of pack line umbrella philosophy, which I know triggers us IU fans when we hear pack line defense, but really that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to limit threes, force tough twos. But you need the personnel to run it, and what they had this past season just didn't cut it. The big question moving forward is, can Darian DeVries get the talent that they need to run their system and compete at this high level? Because again, DeVries coming from Drake, he had one season at West Virginia, now he's at IU. He hasn't really had any experience getting those high level, high major athletes needed to compete night in and night out. So that's going to be the biggest question moving forward, and why this offseason's going to be very massive for his overall success and where this program kind of heads. Obviously, hiring Ryan Carr is big for that. Former executive for the Pacers. I don't know a ton about him, but what I do know is everybody involved in college basketball, NBA basketball, had a lot of positive feedback on this hire. So hopefully that helps with roster construction, being able to identify talent and be able to find the talent that Darian DeVries needs and can fit his system. At the end of the day, though, it's still up to Darian DeVries to go out and finish the deal. Again, having his whole staff together for a full year now also helps. A lot of people like to make the excuse, well, he was hired late and he kind of had a late head start to things. I mean, kind of. He wasn't hired super late, not as late as people think. But the big thing is, you get hired and then you have to put in the staff, and then you, at the same time, have to fill out this roster. Now, he's had his staff for the whole year, and if you think that transfer, trying to get transfers, all that, it only happens once the season ends or once transfer portal opens, I think you're a little naive. I think these staffs are constantly throughout the year keeping an eye on possible prospects if a player would become available, who they feel like would fit their system, and if they do come available, kind of game plan on how to get them to their school. So the fact that they've been together for a whole year is going to help, and hopefully this year they don't have as many roster spots to fill. They have to do a complete overhaul. Hopefully there is some carryover, so that you don't have to focus on filling 13 spots. Maybe you only have to focus on filling like 6 to 7 spots. So you can really isolate your search a little bit more and really hone in on prospects. That's the hope, at least, to see. But regardless, big offseason coming for Darian DeVries. So if we look back, kind of wrap things up, the overall positives from the season, they have an idea of how they want to play, and it's a style that fits modern basketball. It's a style that is going to be intriguing, or I don't want to say intriguing, but really that players want to play in. That was the problem with the last regime, is they did not play a style that really was enjoyable and that really attracted top end talent. And really fit with the mold of how basketball's being played. Another positive is they seem to play hard. I don't really question their effort too much. It was really they just lacked talent. So that's always positive. The negatives, I think, though, is they couldn't get enough talent, and was that a result of some of the outstanding circumstances with the short turnaround with hiring and staff placement? Probably, maybe, but also this current head coach Darian DeVries doesn't have a track record of getting high-end talent, so it's still wait to be seen. Can he do it? And he's going to need to if he's going to want to be successful. So, and then some red flags during the season that I noticed that I don't like. Obviously, losing a big lead to Nebraska at home, never a good sign, but you can write that off as a one-off. But they also had some close calls with losing big leads at Purdue or versus Purdue at home, UCLA. But some other red flags I saw this season, back-to-back blowout losses at home against high-quality opponents. One of those being against your arch rival, resulting in the biggest loss in that rivalry for them since the moon landing. That's never a good look. Always want to, especially when you're playing in a rivalry game, give it your best. And, there's the talent gap between Purdue and Indiana isn't that big, especially considering that IU had beaten Purdue just a few weeks earlier. So that's kind of a concern, a little bit of a red flag. And then laying two massive eggs down the stretch to end the season. Losing at home to Northwestern and not really competing on the road against Ohio State, where your tournament lives are on the line. Not a good look. And that resulted in, them going 3-6 down the stretch, which is never what you want to see. You want to see that a team getting better, playing stronger, not wilting down the home stretch. But we will see. I thought they were absolutely dead after losing to Ohio State on Saturday, but everybody on the bubble apparently lost, so they have a shot. Doesn't seem like they need to have to make a miracle run in the Big Ten tournament to possibly get in. They might be able to get in if they win at least 2 games. They have to, at the very minimum, win at least 2 games. They'll get the winner of Northwestern and Penn State, and then Purdue. So, things could get interesting, but we'll see. Obviously, they're not playing their best basketball right now, so, you don't give it not the highest hopes for them coming to the Big Ten tournament, but, that's why you play the games. Things can happen. But even if they do make the tournament, I don't think it changes much in terms of the questions we have for the long term and the answers to those questions. I think the only thing it does change is kind of the vibes going into the offseason. Obviously, you feel a little bit more positive making the tournament than not. I think the pressure and the importance of this offseason and then going into next year doesn't change even if they make the tournament. And nor should it. It's still going to be, obviously, this rendition of this team is a start, but it's not nearly good enough. And I think behind closed doors, Coach Darian DeVries would say that. But it's also year one, and anybody out there who's got the pitchforks ready for him is out of their mind. And I think they're letting the failures of the past regimes affect their judgment now. Yes, we've been living in this drought of mediocrity and just poor basketball for decades now. But this is only year one for this coaching staff, and you gotta give them some grace and see what they can do. Now, if it looks like this next year at this time, then absolutely the pitchforks will be out. But still, you can't let the previous regime's failures affect play a role in what you think about this regime for right now. So, but like I said, we'll see. Big Ten tournament coming up. Historically, Indiana has not done very well. But, maybe they'll catch fire and win a few games, and they'll hear their name on Selection Sunday, which is a week from this recording, which is exciting time in college basketball. I love March Madness. So hopefully IU can be a part of it, just to kind of get things going here. But again, still huge offseason coming up. So let's wrap things up. That will do it for tonight's episode of Buckets After Bedtime. If you found this enjoyable, please share it with your family and friends. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on Spotify and other major streaming platforms. I'm currently working on getting the episodes uploaded to YouTube as well. So be on the lookout for that if you like listening to things on YouTube. You can check the YouTube page out. It will be Buckets After Bedtime. You also follow us on Twitter at Buckets After Bedtime. But until next time, hug your kids, get some sleep, and as always, go Hoosiers.